A conditional statement allows you to run one block of code or another based on a condition. C++ has two basic forms of conditional statements, if-else and the ternary conditional operator. Here in Xcode, I've opened a working copy of working.cpp, and we'll start by declaring a couple of variables. We'll make x equal to 42 and y equal to 7. And then we'll add a conditional statement. We'll say if x is greater than y, and we'll put our puts here. Puts condition is true, and we won't need this one. And now when I run this, it says condition is true because x is greater than y. Now if I change the condition to x is less than y, you'll see that we get no output when we run this. Save it and run it. It says build succeeded, and our console went away because there was no output. And so when I put this back and run it, we get condition is true. Now, if we want something to run if the condition is false, we can put in else, and we can put condition is false. And now if I change this condition to less than and save and run, you'll see we have condition is false. Now the curly brackets set up a block of code, which means that you could put more than one statement in here if you wanted to. You could have this in here twice, or you could have another statement. Here you see we have condition is false twice. On the other hand, if there's only going to be one statement as a result of the conditional, the curly braces are actually optional. Take these out, and we see that it still works. Now, the disadvantage of doing it this way, and I want to emphasize this because this is actually a really bad idea. The curly braces don't take a lot of typing, and they save you from a problem. So if I had, let's say, only one condition here, and I put in another statement, say, puts, yes, it's true, you'll notice even my IDE is trying to outdent that, because the if statement is really only controlling the first statement after it because there's no curly braces. And so you see it still says, yes, it's true, even though it's not. And if I change this to greater than, you'll see we'll get both of these, because the second puts here is actually not under the control of the if at all, because we don't have curly braces. If we had curly braces here in the first place, and we went ahead and added another statement, we might not have made that mistake. So now it's only true if we have it greater than, and if we change it to less than, again, we'll get no output at all. So the braces are actually very important. Now if I change it back to the other way, we'll only get our false statement. So if there's only one statement in the block, the curly braces are not required, but they will save you from creating a bug. And there have been famous bugs because of this mistake. So you really want to put the braces in there all the time. You don't want to skip that. There's one more form here. You can say else if, and we can say x is greater than y for that, and we can say x is less than y for this, and then we can have another else at the end. They must be equal. And now when I run this, I get x is greater than I, and if I change this to 73, now y is greater than x, and if I change this to 42, then we get they must be equal. So if you need more than one condition, you can use else if, and you could have as many of these as you want, and then you still can have an else at the end. Now there's one other type of conditional statement that I'd like to show you, and in fact, this is actually a conditional expression. And so when I run this, it'll say the greater is 42, and if I change this one to 73, it'll say the greater is 73. So this is a conditional expression, and it's sometimes called the ternary conditional expression. Actually, it's often called that, and it is technically a ternary expression because it has three parts. The first part is the condition, the second part is the expression returned if the condition is true, and the third part is the expression returned if the condition is false. And there's a question mark that separates the first expression from the second, and there's a colon that separates the second expression from the third. So you can look at this as the condition is the question, and the x and the y are the alternate answers depending on the result of the question. It looks a little bit cryptic if you've never seen this before. It's actually been borrowed by a lot of other languages, so there's a chance you have seen it in other languages. But this is the conditional expression, and it's actually very powerful. You'll also see it sometimes in header files or in preprocessor directives, and we'll get to that later in this course. And there's some caveats that go with that we'll cover at that time. So conditionals in C++ are simple and effective. There's one more type of conditional, a multi-way switch, that I'll cover in the next lesson.